Welcome back to the Takeout, back to the Conversation Corner, which I will tell you I love to hang out in. I absolutely love it. During his time in office, President Biden led, as you might recall, the nation through a pandemic and navigated major international conflicts. Very much tried to, including the war in Ukraine and the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, all during his first 2 years. And they were chronicled in this book, which I am told I am not to touch. We just have to leave it right there. I got very strict instructions. Don't touch the book. The title, as you can see, The Last Politician. The author, Franklin Foer, who joins me now. It's great to have you with us.
So good to be here.
So, during your reporting for this book, which is about the first 2 years, did you encounter anyone who was at all, even slightly, anxious about re-election and the prospects of a re-elected Biden serving out the full four years of a second term?
Yeah, people were anxious about re-election. I don't think serving out the full 4 years of his term. I never saw any evidence of that. I saw, examples of a guy who was very, very old, and that was apparent, I think, to anybody who encountered him and everybody who saw him from afar. And during the first 2 years, I saw both strengths and weaknesses that grew out of that age. I mean, it's a matter of strength. I think he had this deep knowledge of the Senate that helped him pass a lot of legislation. It allowed him to do some bold things at the outset on foreign policy that flew in the face of conventional wisdom. But then I think there was this inability to communicate in public that was, I think, clear. I think we in the press saw that most evidently, which was that we didn't have the same sort of access to him that other presidents gave access to.
Was that accumulated fatigue, do you think? He just got tired? I mean, genuinely tired?
Yeah. He just didn't have the stamina to go out and stump in the way that I think you'd want the leader of your party to go out and stump.
Which we both know is an essential part of the job.
Yeah.
Essential part of the job. I want to talk to you about some fascinating reporting in the book about Afghanistan.
Yeah.
About Afghanistan, the withdrawal, the warnings that were given by many people close to this administration about what might happen if you don't prepare better. And one of those voices you report in great detail is Hillary Clinton. Walk me through that.
So Hillary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, and even going back further to when she was First Lady, had connections to women in Afghanistan, and she stayed in touch with them. And as Biden made this decision to withdraw, she became this clearinghouse for all sorts of warnings from NGOs and from women in Afghanistan, saying that disaster was about to unfold. And she tried to convey those warnings to the administration.
If you botch the withdrawal, these women will suffer.
Yeah.
Well, was that a warning to them?
Not even if you botch the withdrawal, that if you withdraw, the Afghan army and Afghan state are going to collapse, and all these people who were our allies for a very long time will be in danger.
So Hillary Clinton's not James Comer, not some right-winger that the Biden White House would reflexively repel or ignore or put at arm's length. This is Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
But she almost got the same kind of Heisman treatment, right?
Yeah, for some people who she'd been close to for a very long period of time. So in the run-up, she got a lot of that. And what's interesting to me about this is a kind of a window into Joe Biden. It's that he was very stubborn about everything. He was stubborn about withdrawing from Afghanistan and stubborn about the way that would happen, as he was stubborn about his decision to run for re-election again. And so that can be both a strength and a weakness. The strength is that when you're right, it allows you to push past a lot of conventional wisdom, a lot of people who are naysayers. You can do hard things. But when you're wrong, you just look like an idiot because you're going past all of these people who are predicting all the things that you need to be concerned with. And that was true in Afghanistan, and I think it was true with his reelection.
Franklin, there was a time about that 2-year point when Biden White House officials, feeling very good about themselves, would say casually, this record is comparable to Lyndon Baines Johnson and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He's right up there on the Mount Rushmore of Democratic presidents, 20th and 21st century. Do you think that will hold? Do you think that was ever true? And if it was true, do you think it'll hold now, knowing what the country knows and looking back on the 2024 election and his decision to run?
He framed things very clearly, almost more clearly than any president. He said, I'm about saving democracy in the face of authoritarianism. And that didn't just mean staving off Russia and China. It meant that in his mind, he was trying to prevent Donald Trump from returning to the White House. And so whatever he accomplished in his first 2 years may have looked significant at the time. When I wrote this book, it looked much more impressive after 2 years. But Donald Trump's return to the White House means that almost everything that he accomplished is going to be undone. So it's hard to give him too much credit. The decision to run again clouds everything else in his presidency.
There might be one LBJ comparison, LBJ to Richard Nixon, Joe Biden to Donald Trump, Franklin Foer, the last politician. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.